This is a marble. It's small, it's light, it's only a few grams. It's quite harmless in my hand. But if we were to place this marble in orbit, it would suddenly gain 8 kilometers per second of speed. That's 8 kilometers per second. Think about it, that's around 20 times faster than a bullet. It will take this marble less than 10 minutes to travel from London to New York. And even something this tiny and innocent could cause a disaster. Why? Well, at those speeds, it's not only about the size, it's also about the energy. And an object this tiny would have the same energy of a hand grenade. And here's where the problem is. Space is not empty. There are a lot of satellites, a lot of objects circling around. And a single marble like this could collide with a satellite and shatter it into thousands of pieces. And that's just the beginning, because each one of these fragments, each one of those marbles will have the same energy and the same or even higher speed, those 8 kilometers per second. Each one a new threat. Each one could cause a new collision that could start a domino effect. So why should we care about this marble? Why should we care about this debris? Well, what if I told you that the next big blackout could not come from Earth, but from space? We've all lived through a blackout before, a moment in which electricity goes down, the internet stops working, and it could affect our house, our neighborhood, in the worst cases, our town or our city. But a lot of the technology in our modern world depends heavily on satellites. Things like navigation, communication, weather updates, even banking and financial system that we take for granted. And a single space collision could be the trigger of this domino effect. A single marble could be the trigger of this domino effect. And unfortunately, here's the surprising part. This is not a science fiction movie. It is a real challenge that we are already facing. There are more than 36,000 large pieces of debris currently being tracked, and many millions more that are simply too tiny for us to track, but we know they're there. They don't slow down, they don't run out of fuel, and unfortunately, they never take a day off. They're circling Earth, potentially forever. So I wanted to picture space as a big motorway. So in the early days of space exploration, we are talking about the 1960s and the 1970s, this motorway was almost empty, only a few satellites, only a few cars going around. But as the years have passed, more and more satellites have arrived, more and more vehicles have been added to this motorway. And if you will, we went from a quiet and peaceful country road to a very busy and polluted motorway. The result? Well, the result is that space is becoming overcrowded. Space is already overcrowded. And in the same way that in a highway with more cars, you increase the risk of a crash, of an accident, in orbit is really the same thing. We are increasing the chances of a collision. How does a collision at 8 kilometers per second look like? Who's managing this traffic? Who's preventing the crash? Well, I want you to travel back to 2009. It's more than 15 years ago. It's February, and the unthinkable is about to happen. There are two satellites, an American one called Iridium, and guess what? A Russian one called Cosmos, and they are in the wrong place at the wrong time. And what happens next is that they collided. This was the first big collision between two satellites. This collision itself created more than 2,000 new pieces of debris. Some of them were large enough to cause serious damage to other satellites. And unfortunately, most of the yellow speckles that you see there, they're still up there 15 years later. They're still posing a risk. Even the International Space Station had to dodge a couple of them. And every year, new collisions generate even more fragments. This was a single event in a very specific moment in time, but we cannot consider this an isolated event. This is not a science fiction movie. Space is not empty. Space is not empty anymore. For me and for a lot of people working in the field, this was a stark wake-up call of what might happen if we don't address the problem. Scientists actually also have a name for this phenomenon. It's called the Kessler syndrome, and it's named after the NASA scientist who pioneered a lot of the early research in space debris. And it describes a scenario in which there is a first collision, a first marble, that triggers another collision. And from this collision, we trigger another one and another one. And you can clearly see that there's the possibility for a runway effect, for a chain reaction, for a domino effect. Let me be clear, it hasn't happened yet, but if we don't take action, it is a very real possibility. And don't get me wrong, this is not only a problem for rocket scientists or aerospace engineers or space billionaires, if you will. It affects us all. Because satellites nowadays power a lot of the system and the services that we rely upon on a daily basis. Things like GPS for navigation, internet for communication, weather forecasts, even financial transactions are affected. Now imagine for a second a world where all these systems go dark. A phone will become totally useless. There's no GPS to guide you. There's no weather updates. Air traffic is seriously disrupted. And if disaster strikes, emergency calls are not available. A serious collision in space is not only an inconvenience, it could change life on Earth. In other words, the next big blackout could start from space. But hold on, don't panic yet. I also have some good news. And we've been knowing about this issue for a while, and we are doing something about it. I work for a company called ClearSpace. ClearSpace was founded with the idea of tackling the issue head-on. And in 2028, we'll be sending our first satellite, our first mission, to remove one of these space debris. It'll be the first of its kind, and as such, will come with a few challenges, let's say. So how are we going to do this? Well, our spacecraft, called ClearSpace 1, will have an innovative grasping system to capture the debris. It's inspired by nature, by how animals in nature grab things, and it's made of 4 tentacles. They're very similar to an animal, and they're strong, extremely strong, but also soft and padded, because we don't want to create more damage to the debris. Clearly, the first challenge is to get there, but there's more. We need accuracy, both in the technology, but in the execution as well, as the robot will have to act, in a sense, like a surgeon, handling the debris gently without causing further damage. It will navigate around, identify the piece, and grab it with care. The challenges clearly are significant, as space debris has the tendency to not stay still, especially as space debris might be a spent satellite, a dead satellite without control. So they normally spin around, they move, they don't stay in the same place. So in other words, besides the precision of a surgeon, we need the agility of a dancer. And after capture, we will release the debris safely back into Earth's atmosphere, where it will simply burn up and disappear without leaving any residue. And this is something that has never been done before, and that's why it's so exciting for all of us at ClearSpace. But ClearSpace 1 is only the beginning. The ClearSpace 1 mission is just the start. The goal is to build a future in which cleanup becomes a routine. We want to build a future in which when you're launching a satellite, you're already planning for its disposal. When the satellite is in the launch pad, you already thought about the retirement. Now, here's the key point, I think. This is not only an amazing technical challenge, an amazing engineering feat, it's a shared responsibility. As humans, we have faced global challenges before. We didn't let our oceans fill with plastic, for example. We didn't turn away. We stepped up. We found ways to clean them. We set new standards. We even used new technology to try to address this issue. And we must do the same for space. Because like on Earth, technology can help us solve human-made problems that we created. So we are at a crossroads. We have the technology, we have the knowledge, and if we choose, we also have the time. It would clearly take a shared effort and collaboration between governments, private companies, scientists, but also all of us to raise awareness. But I strongly believe that the choices that we make today will shape the skies that our future generation will inherit. Space has given us so much. Space is still giving us so much to this day, and it's now our turn to make sure that we preserve it. Remember, in my hand, this is just marble, but in orbit, it could change everything. Let's be responsible. Thank you very much.